Let's go make a killing.
All right.
Welcome to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
10 to the 5 to the 4, play one, touchdown!
The sharpest football contest show in the land.
I'll take the action. My Birds, Benjamin Franklin's team, favored by 1.5 points. I'll give you 3 more.
You're now riding shotgun with 2 former contest winners in Brady, Kannon and James Salinas. And getting a former player's perspective with 9-year NFL veteran Mike Pritchard.
Let's go!
As they guide you through strategy, process, and your contest picks each and every week of the season.
I do like the idea of a parlay.
Now here's your host, Brady Kannon.
Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circus Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. 2 weeks remain in football contest season. Of course, 2 weeks remain in the regular season of NFL 2024. I am Brady Kannon, along with Mike Pritchard and James Salinas. Let's take a look at what happened in Week 16 in the football contest here in town in the SuperContest over at Westgate. The consensus went 3-2 in Week 16. Now 38, 39, and 3, just a game under 500 are the 5 most popular picks in the SuperContest. Circus Sports Million also 3-2. 39 and 41 in the Circus Sports Million as far as their top 5 picks throughout the season. If all you're doing is fading the consensus, remember when this was so lucrative to the tune of 60%? Now you're in the red. 51% is the percentage of winners you're finding now in the consensus if all you're doing is going against those picks week in and week out. We did great in Week 16, knock on wood. The first of the 3-week mini contest in the Westgate Super Contest, we got out to a 4-0-1 start. We are tied for 28th place there as far as the final 3-week mini contest. Circus Survivor, 2 weeks really in the balance here. Week 16, only 5 entries were eliminated. And then Week 17A for Christmas, those 3 games, 11 entries were bounced. Some people on the Steelers, some people on the Bears, and 1 entry on the Texans. Inherent value now of your ticket, almost $420,000 as 34 live entries remain. Gentlemen, let's get right into it. A smaller slate with some Thursday games, some Wednesday games, some Saturday games going on that will be a part of our program. And that's where we will begin, James. Let's start. It's a 10 a.m. Pacific start on Saturday morning. The Los Angeles Chargers visiting the New England Patriots.
Wake and bake Southern Cal for Charger fans thinking about this all the way across town on Saturday. You mentioned it. Wednesday games, Thursday games, Saturday games. I mean, now I'm getting confused what day it is, although I know we're less than 24 hours from kickoff. And thinking about the first game you just talked about, Brady, with the Chargers put themselves in a great position. Now they control their own destiny to get into the playoffs. In a sense, they win this game at New England on Saturday. They've secured one of the wild card spots in the AFC. Now, that doesn't mean they have to win. It's not a have to moment for these guys. They can win next week. They play the Las Vegas Raiders. So it's one or the other. And I think in this spot here, going on the road, laying 4.5, the Chargers have been one of these teams that it's been hard to get a handle on. I think with Harbaugh coming in, we expected that this was going to be a very physical football team at the line of scrimmage in the trenches, and they have been. But what's been surprising to me is the lack of, especially the second half of the season for the Chargers, really the lack of pass protection. I think we've seen a lot of pressure coming on to Herbert, and they've had such highs and lows offensively. You could speak to that just in the last Thursday game and that win over the Broncos. Not a good first half and the absolute best second half for the Chargers in that game. Now they've got to put together 4 quarters to have to go on the road and cover a number like 4.5. And thinking about not only the early start, I don't know if the urgency's quite there for the Chargers in this game, knowing that they have a game next week against the lowly Raiders in their back pocket to get themselves in the playoffs, Pritch. I'm kind of leaning here towards it. Actually, it's more than a lean. I like the Patriots here, plus the 4.5. I think this spot here with the Patriots, we start to look at, and we talked about this before, where you get to the end of the season and which teams are looking ahead to next year, not only for players, but is there going to be a roster overhaul? Is there going to be a coaching overhaul? I think for the New England Patriots, the coaching staff is intact. The quarterback they found with Drake May is intact. So I think now these last 2 games for the Patriots, looking to build momentum going into next year instead of a lot of guys wondering where they're going to be. I think this is an opportunity for the Patriots to continue to week in and week out compete and get better. I like the Patriots here plus 4.5, Mike.
Yeah, motivation is still on the side of the Patriots as they want to get better and take some momentum into the offseason, like you mentioned, James. And that's big, too. I think for a young team, quarterback in particular, to have that confidence and take that into the offseason, that's everything. So looking for a great effort from the Patriots for sure. You know, on the other side with the Chargers, the expectations, because Harbaugh has won everywhere he's been, maybe the expectations were, okay, he's going to take this team to the playoffs. And that could happen. But along the way, they had to adjust to the absence of Dobbins, right? And I think in this year's football and today's NFL, you have to value certain positions more so than you did before. Like, for instance, the running back. Like, you take Derrick Henry from the Ravens, you know, maybe Lamar Jackson gets them to the promised land. Who knows? You take Saquon Barkley off of the Eagles, maybe they get to the promised land, but who knows? But with those guys on those rosters, for sure, not only are they a playoff teams, they could be Super Bowl winning teams. So I think Dobbins has that kind of impact with the Chargers. It's taken some time to adjust to that. We saw the Chargers adjust to that in that second half against the Broncos, and maybe they unlock something, right? They're going to get Dobbins back too, so we'll see. But I do like the Patriots in this situation with the momentum. That's a long trip for the Chargers, knowing that they could face the Raiders, a familiar opponent, and still perhaps make the playoffs. And then, you know, another game, sticking with that division, guys, the Broncos, can they close it out? You know, expectations, I don't know if they were to playoffs, but certainly an improvement. Excited about Bo Nix, excited about his growth, his maturation as well, and the surprise defensive effort that we've seen from the Broncos. I tell you, Riley Moss coming back is going to energize that group too on the defensive side of the ball for the Broncos. And it's going to be a good matchup. I mean, I think the 11 personnel for the Bengals against that cover scheme that Vance Joseph wants to run and the Broncos defensively, that's going to be interesting. But the Broncos are in a situation that is so unfamiliar to this team. They don't have Peyton Manning. They don't have that veteran presence, right? They have a bunch of youngsters who are excited about their season so far. But can they close it off, though? And we didn't see that against the Chargers. This is going to be a tough matchup for the Broncos on the road. But it's a curious game, though, Brady. I want to get your thoughts on this matchup and what you think.
Yeah, the veteran on the Broncos is their head coach, Sean Payton. And I think he's done a heck of a job. I think he'll have his team ready. I think this is going to be a great football game. I don't know if I want to bet on this one. If I had to bet on it, I'd certainly take that hook on top of that 3. But the live market, for the most part, I believe is dealing 3. I'm probably, as far as my own personal betting, I'll probably stay away from this one. But we get to that time of the year where there are teams in must-win situations. And I know we've defined it. It's not completely a must-win for the Chargers, but I think it sure feels like that. And I like the team that is playing for pride. And we saw New England play for pride last week and show up against the Buffalo Bills. Both teams must win between the Broncos and the Cincinnati Bengals. So I don't really have a situational angle there. You could argue, James, that there's a situational angle with the Rams and the Cardinals. The Rams are in a must-win situation. The Cardinals have been eliminated. So I believe the Cardinals are in that spot where they want to play spoiler and possibly ruin things for their division opponent in Los Angeles.
I think they absolutely, the division games, and smart by the NFL, we've seen it over the last X amount of years, making all these last games, the last couple, 3-4 games of the season, all divisional games. But, you know, with Arizona, it's a free fall, they're out of the playoff contention. I think the other piece here too that has me concerned for wanting to advocate for an Arizona side is just some of the injuries that we're seeing right now. The best player when it comes to rushing the football by far is James Conner. We'll see if he plays. I don't know if he plays. It's questionable with the knee injury. And they're both their starting tackles, left and right tackle, are both out with that pass rush that we've seen, the bookends. Those young guys for the Rams putting great pressure this second half. It's probably, I think you're going to see a lot of pressure coming on the quarterback side for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. And this could be a one-way street for the Rams looking to clinch the NFC West. Who'd have thunk that, right? Great season for those guys. Not a play for me.
Yeah, it's a lot of points, but you're right. A lot of injuries on that Cardinals side. We head to a couple of games involving the NFC South when we return on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Steiner's, a Nevada-style pub, invites you to play the best keno and video poker in Las Vegas. Promos are how we roll, so make the most of your gaming dollars with ongoing promotions, daily free play, bonuses, and more. With a chance to win Knights, Raiders, Aviators tickets, and big money with all those jackpots. It's not only great gaming at Steiner's, it's the 24 awesome rotating draft beers and the best appetizers to match. Steiner's, the Nevada-style pub, with 3 locations across the Vegas Valley. Steiner's, I love this place.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circus Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Brady Kannon, Mike Pritchard, and James Salinas with you. And this one has actually been flexed to Sunday night. You'll find it on your contest card in rotation. But they will play at 5:20 or roughly Pacific, 8:20 Eastern on Sunday night. A good matchup with the Washington Commanders hosting the Atlanta Falcons. Playoffs on the minds of both of these squads. James, what do you do with this one?
Well, I think you kind of got to, for the contest piece, now you're in this position where you got to look at, well, what happens prior to certain teams playing a game, and that will determine whether both of these teams may have an opportunity to clinch their divisions at kickoff. And so thinking about where the Falcons are, and now you got the rookie Penix Jr. in there at quarterback. And, it's hard to say. It looked fine. I'm sure they were able to run some more boots and get him outside of the pocket, as opposed to what we've seen from what we saw previously, or really the last 6 to 7 weeks out of Kirk Cousins, and the lack of mobility really hampered that offense going forward. But what I don't know what to take from it, because they were playing the Giants last week, and the Giants will make every rookie quarterback, or any quarterback for that matter, look tremendous, and they did that last week against the Falcons. But if the Falcons, they can clinch the South with a win and a Tampa Bay loss versus Carolina. So another divisional game, that Tampa Bay and Carolina game will be happening in the morning. So they'll know clearly before kickoff, even when they're getting loose and warmed up, they'll know what their status is for that matchup. And I think on the other side with the Commanders here, Pritch, they can clinch a playoff berth. No longer in it. They can clinch a playoff berth in the NFC, but also with a Carolina loss. So that game is going to be impactful for both of these teams. But I think ultimately they want to control their own destiny, regardless of what the other teams are doing ahead of them in the morning and the afternoon games, and just get out there and win. This number sitting at 4. I'm wondering right now, it was such an emotional game last week for the Washington Commanders, coming back the way that they did, a last-second win, big division rival against Philadelphia Eagles, to win that football game in the manner that they did. I'm wondering, do you sense maybe a little bit of a letdown? I'm not really sure. I have a hard time knowing where to go with this game, not only because of what's going on prior to both these teams playing, but just where the Washington Commanders are right now. And I think it's going to be a fun matchup with 2 rookie quarterbacks being on display on Sunday Night Football. But I don't know. I don't really have a good feel for this game as far as the side is concerned, with Washington laying 4.
Yeah, you know what, fellas? The league told us that they were excited about this matchup when they flexed this game prior to the news of Penix actually being named a starter. I mean, I think it was on the way to being announced when the league knew about it and they wanted to flex it. So everybody's excited about this matchup. I mean, Daniels has been spectacular. The Commanders was one of those teams where you, at the beginning of the year, you were looking at them, okay, perhaps this could be an outlier situation, much like CJ Stroud last year, right? With a new coach, first-time head coach, really. Now you got Quinn, and you team him up with what looks to be a great fit with Cliff Kingsbury, and settling down Jaden Daniels in this offense, and it's taken off. And I know this game right here is interesting because as we've talked about all year long and documented this, really, that the NFC South is a division of underachievers, man. And so if the Falcons need to overachieve in order to get to the playoffs, I don't know if I could back that, right? Where I can back something like the Commanders. And to your question, James, this could be a letdown spot for the Commanders. But I will say Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football or something like that has a way to waken you up, right? Because you know the spotlight is on you. You know that everybody's going to be tuning in and watching that game too. So you want to put your best foot forward if you can. But that's normally for a veteran team, right? This is a younger team with a younger quarterback, and you wonder if they can rise to the occasion that way or be consistent that way in primetime. So It is an intriguing game. I don't know if it makes the card or not, guys. I mean, but get your feel, Brady. What's your feeling on this matchup?
If I was just going to hold true to the theory I've been using all season long with Dan Quinn now running the show there in Washington, I would be going against the Commanders here. I do believe the letdown factor is real. I think you bring up a great point, Mike, that, sometimes in a primetime game under the spotlight, you kind of throw the letdown thing out the window. But I'd be taking the points with the Falcons here because the week before a division game, you guys know my love for Quinn in division games. The week before a division game is a week to go against him. And of course, they wrap up the season with the Dallas Cowboys next week. So again, if we're just going to go true to form here, I'd play against him. I want to talk about the other NFC South team I mentioned in the last segment, the New Orleans Saints. They are beat, battered, banged up. James suggested that maybe Bobby Hebert would be quarterbacking last week. They this week will not have Derek Carr once again, and they host the Las Vegas Raiders. And guys, this one popped out at me immediately. I said, okay, Las Vegas got a win last week. Now they're on the road, maybe feeling a little bit good about themselves. They're a road favorite. That's about all I need to say. The Raiders are a road favorite. No, thank you, Pritch. That's the way I'm going on this one.
Yeah, I can't get on board with that either. Derek Carr, as a former player, he does not inspire me at all. And I don't know how he could inspire anybody, really. He did a fantastic job for 1 year. And that was the year Gruden got fired when he was with the Raiders and they made the playoffs. But other than that, I mean, he just comes across as synthetic, some kind of material that you can't describe, man. And his own teammates, I think, have that resentment towards him too. So the fact that he's not going to play against his former team, I don't think that makes a difference. I mean, the quarterback situation is what it is with New Orleans. Defensively, though, I mean, they played well and played decent at home. And the Raiders have been so inconsistent all year long. And AP, Antonio Pierce, he cannot be in the good graces of one like Tom Brady or some other brain trust that are going to move this franchise forward with the Raiders. So I don't even know what the Raiders are playing for in terms of their future, as a lot of players on that team probably aren't going to even be there, guys. So yeah, I could not. I'm like you, Brady. I cannot support the Raiders at all. James, what do you think?
I'm down with the Saints. It sounds crazy, I know it, but we've got to start thinking about, and we can discuss this as the program goes on, about contest theory. So this isn't just games that we're backing that we're going to be firing on prior to kickoff. This is contest theory, and we're going to be looking for some off the grid games in a sense. I don't know how many people are really looking to play either side in this matchup, be it Saints or Raiders, but thinking about where the Saints coming off of what we see last, getting throttled and embarrassed and shut out on Monday Night Football in Green Bay just a few days ago. I think there's still enough leadership and competitive pride, especially on that defensive side, to show up in the Superdome. I do. I like the Saints to beat the Raiders on Sunday.
Yeah, we're all banking that they bounce back off being shut out last week, which typically NFL teams will do. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Stick around.
Looking for your next ultimate golf experience? Discover Bali High Golf Club, a tropical paradise on the Las Vegas Strip, featuring lush greenery, water features, Balinese tropical plants, white sand, and black volcanic rock, creating an enchanting atmosphere. Bali High creates a memorable golf experience for a typical foursome, a group celebrating a bachelor or bachelorette party, or your next corporate outing. It's award-winning golf on the Strip, Vegas style. Book your ultimate golf experience now at BaliHighGolfClub.com.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. We move on down the contest card in Week 17, and we land on, well, guys, it's a meaningless game. Wonder what your thoughts are if we want to put it on our card. You talk about contest theory. Maybe that's one reason to use this game. That is the Tennessee Titans visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars, James.
No, it's not going to make the card. I just can't get there. I can't get there with either one of these teams. Now, fortunately for the Titans, Will Levis is not playing, although we saw last week with Will Levis being benched, we didn't see Mason Rudolph do him any favors either. I think he had 3 picks last week. And I think the one thing we've seen consistently out of the Titans for the majority of the season, at least up until that Indy game, was that they were competitive on the defensive side. Well, that was not the case last week in Indy. They gave up over 300 yards rushing. Like that That's some old Big 8 wishbone stuff back in the day when you were playing, Pritch, like 300 plus yards on the ground. You don't see that in the NFL. And that just tells me right there that the Titans had no interest in playing. And we know that it's a new coach there, and there's going to be growing pains. They're going to be looking for a quarterback next year. I think the coaching staff obviously should be intact. But, this is a team that they're just not feeling the buy-in. And I think because that defense has had to carry the load all season long and really make up for a lot of mistakes that we've seen offensively, in particular with Will Levis. But then we saw, again, like I said, with Rudolph, I just don't know if this team's going to show up or not. What are they going to do down in Florida? Are they going to compete? Do they have some competitive pride giving up 300 yards rushing? I don't think the Jaguars are anywhere close to even be able to try to rush for 100 yards or even try to gain 300 yards in total offense. I think the one bright spot we have seen for the Jaguars is the rookie Thomas Jr. at the wideout position. He's had a fantastic season, tremendous player. So good pickup on their pickup last year from Texas last year on the draft. But I don't know where either of these teams are going. Jacksonville's going to have a new coaching staff. They got their quarterback intact basically because they're committed to him through his pay. But beyond that, I don't know, Prish. This is a coin toss. This is throw a dart. This is close your eyes and hold your nose, and nothing to do with me. I can't figure out any which way this game's going to go. It's not going to make my card.
Yeah, I got lucky with the Jags a few weeks ago in this matchup with Mac Jones, and Will Levis was a quarterback at the time, and was able to cash that way. But it's fascinating because Mac Jones he's a career backup now, but yet he doesn't understand that, right? I mean, you can't play the position like he's playing and be aware of the situation that you're in. Like you just mentioned, Peterson's probably not going to be there next year, and so. Whoever comes in, Trevor Lawrence is going to be the guy, but are you sure you're going to be the backup? Or are you going to be somewhere else, right? Or looking for a job? And that, to me, that's something that you can probably back a little bit if that particular player got that. But he doesn't, right? And so there's nothing here to like in this matchup. Like you mentioned before, the Titans, from a defensive perspective, that was something to kind of be excited about at times. But there's no metrics, there's no numbers, there's nothing out there to give me an edge in this matchup, Brady. We talk about games that could be interesting and intriguing, though, or teams that are building on something. We talked about the Patriots earlier. The Carolina Panthers are one of those teams, right? I think from a quarterbacking standpoint, Bryce Young is still too small. And I'll freely say that on our show, but he's been inspiring his team. He's become a quarterback for the Panthers, and that is something that has led to some growth with this football team too. So I'll be interested in your thoughts in this match. I mean, you got Tampa Bay in a situation where they let a game go by them. They could have captured the division and certainly captured a playoff a run right there, or a divisional win anyway. And then all of a sudden, now they're in a situation where they have to win here. It's a tough matchup, in my opinion, as the Buccaneers are banged up across the board on both sides of the ball from an inspired Carolina Panthers team.
Yeah, both sides a little bit banged up here, but you're exactly right. Carolina has played inspired. They have really turned their season around, and credit to their head coach, Dave Canales. They've got some positivity going around that locker room, I believe. And this is one of those situations, like we often have in the second to last week of the regular season, where you have one team in a must-win situation and another team just looking to play spoiler. And I like to bet on those teams that are in the role of spoiler, and that would be the Panthers. This team has been competitive for several weeks now. The Buccaneers is an 8-point favorite. I don't care who they're playing. That's a lot of points. These games at home in Tampa tend to go over the total. Not a lot of defense expected in this game. We've seen the live market get bet even further to the over in this game. I think you could possibly have a lot of back and forth here as far as scoring in this game. And I think at the end of the day, the Carolina Panthers have a good chance to keep this one close with the pressure that is on the Buccaneers. They are certainly in that must-win situation. James, I know typically, you're more of a situational handicapper and matchups and stuff like that, but I like to bet against these must-win teams, and I think that's a bet against Tampa Bay in this case.
Well, we'll take the 8 points. I think it's going to be a competitive. We saw this just a few weeks ago. The Panthers had that game won in overtime, setting up for the field goal until Chuba put it on the ground. I think they're going to come to play on Sunday. It'll be a close game. I like the +8 with Carolina.
San Diego is home to Wolfpack Hospitality Restaurants, located in beautiful La Jolla. Stop by Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria on your next trip. Visit Cove House, a top 100 brunch in California, or Shore Rider, serving up margaritas, fish tacos, and a vibe that will make you feel like a regular in no time. For a slice of New York-style pizza with a California twist, it's Dough Mama Pizzeria, where the wings and pizza draw compliments from around the world. Go to wolfpackhospitality.com, and we will look forward to seeing you at Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria.
Want to gamble like the pros? At LasVegasAdvisor.com, you'll find the world's best how-to books, software, and strategy cards featuring blackjack, poker, video poker, and of course, sports betting, including the Stanford Wong Classic Sharp Sports Betting. Don't forget LVA's Member Rewards coupon book, offering discounts on dining and entertainment, including a buy one, get one for the awesome lobster buffet at the Palms, and more than $700 in gambling-free play, match play, and bonus offers. Up your gambling game today at LasVegasAdvisor.com.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circus Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Brady, Kannon, Mike Pritchard, and James Salinas with you. For everything involving our show, where to find us, go to footballcontestshow.com. Again, footballcontestshow.com. It is time to shift our conversation to Circa Survivor. 34 entries remain. Week 17A and Week 17B are upon us. Week 17A, the 3 Christmas games, 11 entries were eliminated. So now the second part of the week here, you've got to choose from Saturday and Sunday's slate. Couple big favorites, the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Indianapolis Colts are a big favorite, playing those lowly New York Giants. Now, not a lot of people, Mike, have the Bills and the Eagles left as far as teams they can still use. Where do you go here if you're still looking to cash for $14.2 million?
Well, first of all, I'd block that out. Because you're human, right? You're thinking about winning $14 million. Is that realistic? Is that really going to happen? Probably not. I mean, it's the chances of you being the only survivor are pretty slim. So you're going to chop it up, or something else is going to happen. So you kind of have to block that out. You know you're going to be profitable. You know you made a lot of money already. So now it's about how much money can you preserve, or how much money can you really monetize, or how can you monetize the situation to your advantage? And I think if you go about it that way, you'll be okay. I don't know if your emotions will get to you. They shouldn't overwhelm you at this point. I'll ask you guys this because you guys are contest winners. You're coming down to the last few weeks. And then, okay, you got a chance to make money, and you're going to make money. You're going to make money. Like, how do you do it? How do you go about it? And so I think you got to map it out. And here's what I mean by that. We didn't really talk about this in our pre-show, but I think you got to look ahead to the next week, the last week, because there's going to be scenarios in which some teams are going to have nothing to play for, and they might be a big favorite. Who knows what the lines are going to be like, right? And do you try to anticipate or guess the lines? Or is that just too much? Like I said, don't overwhelm yourself. But I think everybody in this situation, when you're looking at the games and availability, obviously you're in a good spot with some of these games. I mean, even with the backup quarterback with the Eagles, I think you're okay in that situation. I believe. Buffalo is another one. If you have something. If you still have them available, that's a good spot to really look at it and certainly feel good about. But I think about just me personally, trying to be a competitor and also trying to survive, but more importantly, monetizing this situation to the best of my ability. And how do I do that? And how do I navigate that to that final week? I think people are going to have to look at that final week as they make their decisions going into this week. And your thoughts on that, guys? Seriously, I want to know from contest winners down the stretch what those decisions were like.
Yeah, I was going to say, looking at $14 million, to your point, we're not just going to have one final winner. I'm sure a lot of the entries have already sold off pieces, parts, certain percentages of theirs to recoup some money, a safer way rather than hedge. Because how much capital do you have? What is your credit like? I mean, so many other kind of intangible things have to go into what hedging looks like. And now, when do you hedge? How many weeks ago, if you were doing it at all, do you do that? I think it's become more consistent and more common now that people just sell off 5%, 10%, whatever that might be, and figure out how they prorate that price based on the inherent value of the entry. I think from winning a contest, so I think that's just it. Looking at getting to the finish line and winning the contest, regardless of whether there's 10 or there's 20 or however it chops up, whatever that looks like. At this point, you've survived this long. I'm sure these guys are so exhausted. I think I can look from when I was the first time I actually played in the contest is when I won it. And what a grind that was. You're talking about it's a different contest from Survivor, but 5 picks a week, five games a week ATS for the duration of the season. And you start to get down there, the players, we talk about a grind for the players. It's a grind for sports bettors too. So I'm sure for these guys that have been through the highs and lows, I'm sure every single one of these guys that are still alive in Survivor, they can look at 1, 2, 3, however many games that they had that they thought they lost or they won at the last second, just the crazy roller coaster that's really played on their emotions. That's the challenge now. And I think now it's just, you only have 2 weeks. This is it. This is really the key week. Next week, I'm sure there's going to be discussions of chopping up and what that looks like, Brady. But this is the week where you play your best game on the board. To me, it's Buffalo. Buffalo's the best game. I know they're playing the Jets and it's a divisional game, but the Buffalo clearly win this game. You're the 2 seed. You're done. You're playing for your bye next week. I like Buffalo to win. I like Buffalo to cover that 10, that 11 in the contest. But there's only 4 that have that. You're talking the biggest one as far as the Bills. The biggest availability right now is the Indianapolis Colts. 33 out of the 34, Brady, have the Colts available for Sunday. We know the Giants have mailed it in. No effort, no energy last week at Atlanta. Don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. But at this point, does it matter? Just give it to JT and let him run wild. He made up for that gaffe in Denver a couple weeks ago. Where are you standing with 2 weeks to go in Survivor, Brady?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think if you have the Eagles or the Bills available, you probably have to use them. And Mike, like you talked about, week 18, the final week, can be a very interesting scenario. Who's going to be playing their starters? Who's going to be, so I think you have to go. And to your point, James, this is the week. You got to go all in, make your best pick here, and take your chances next week. I think the Colts may end up being the most popular pick. The Eagles in the Circa Sports Million and the Westgate SuperContest, the Cowboys are going to be extremely popular in my estimation because in the live market, the Cowboys have come down to just a 7.5 point underdog. But in these contests with the stale lines that are set earlier in the week, the Cowboys are getting 9.5. So I got to believe the Cowboys are going to be one of, if not the most very popular pick against the number this week, James.
I do. And I think that's where, from a contest strategy, we know there's a lot of players, a lot of entries that look to just pick off stale numbers or static numbers. We'll call it static, not stale. But it's a static number. We know once it's set, whether it's Wednesday or Thursday, that's what the number is. And a lot of entries, they like to just pick those off, and you're going to get the line value. But does the line value matter if you don't win and you don't cover? And I think for here, I think for us, trying to find ways to, we're looking at these last quarterlies of these last 3-week mini contests within the Super Contest, trying to go and get outside and go a little rogue with that. Maybe that's where we're taking teams that get the worst of the number, knowing that we're going to be in the minority when it comes to massive selections on that side.
Yeah, well, here's a question for you guys.
Go ahead.
James, you said that the Colts, there's what the most availability is with the Colts, right?
Yes.
So if you look out to last week, they're at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if the bulk of everybody in this contest, will they use the Colts this week? Or, you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm like, okay, how do I monetize or how do I get myself? You're right. You're absolutely 1000% right. You have to get to next week. But my goodness, if your availability with the Colts is that strong with the field, I wonder how many people are going to make that decision and say, look, I'd rather play the Colts in week 18 at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars 4 to 14 million or whatever it's going to be, right?
I was going to say right now with the Colts, they still have they have a small chance, but they need to win and have some help to get in the playoffs. There's a lot of things that have to go their way this weekend to where probably won't happen, even if the Colts do win, which they should against the Giants. But I think all those different scenarios probably knock them out of the playoff hunt, and they won't be. Now you're just playing for competitive pride next week. Maybe a lot of contract kind of incentives going forward for next week for both of those teams. So that's the challenge too. You're trying to read where do these stand and what do they have to actually play for in the final week beyond just wanting to compete against your division rivals.
James, I wonder what you think here from an against the spread perspective. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers could also be a very popular Circa Survivor pick this week. I believe it's 16 entries still have Tampa Bay left. Similar point spread here to the Colts as a 7.5 or 8 point favorite. I would be much more confident taking the Colts rather than Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay has a tougher customer in a team that's still playing in the Carolina Panthers.
I totally agree. I think the Giants have totally mailed it in. That is a team that, and they're one of the worst rush defenses in the league, and you're going to go up against that Colts running game. I'd rather much take the Colts rather than take Tampa in that divisional matchup against Carolina.
Want to enter the biggest and best football contests in Las Vegas, but don't know where to start? Look no further than footballcontest.com to get the info you need to succeed in the biggest football contests in the world. Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate SuperContest. Reserve the most trusted proxy service in the business now at footballcontest.com. Maddie and Tony have been leaders in the industry for 15 years. They submit your picks while you focus on picking winners. Experience matters. Go with the pros at footballcontest.com and start winning now.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by our friends at Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. I was at both places over the weekend, took my father there, told him, you know what? You've just entered maybe the two most famous sports books in the world. A pleasure to be supported by these icons in the industry. Gentlemen, a few more games to go, and this is going to be a dandy. The Minnesota Vikings at home hosting the Green Bay Packers, basically a toss-up game. Vikings are pretty much a 1 or 1.5 point favorite everywhere. 1 point favorites here in both contests. Pritch, what do you do with this one?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the Packers are going to become the most dangerous team in the playoffs once they get in there because they just got this youth, this enthusiasm. And oh, by the way, they picked up an AP rushing title winner along the way in Josh Jacobs. And they've shifted their mindset. Very physical football team. We talked about the Commanders being an outlier. Here's your other outlier, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, it's fascinating about this team because they jettisoned Danielle Hunter, a really good player. Brian Flores has had some things to deal with the league. But here you go. This is a team with Sam Darnold with chips on their shoulders, both of them, even their head coach. And it's very fascinating to see the Vikings be in this situation. Just looking at ATS numbers, 10-4-1 ATS. I mean, that gives you an indication of the respect or lack of respect that people had for this team going into the year. Now, I'm past the Sam Darnold thing, right? I'm past the fact that this guy has jumped around the league. He's gotten comfortable and he's gotten confident. He was a high pick for a reason. The guy's got talent, and you can see it on some of these throws that he's making right now with his confidence. And on the other side, you got the Packers with Jordan Love with the complement of a running game, strong running game. And now defensively, I think the Packers made a shift on things, and they're starting to get healthy too. I cannot call an edge in this matchup. Not even from a home field advantage. I mean, think about the spread here, and the Packers are on the road. So it's a tough environment to play in. I know that. But yet the Packers are only finding themselves, a point in terms of this spread here. So I don't have an edge in this one. Guys, I think anything and everything can happen in this game, and I'm going to sit back and watch it. What are you guys feeling on this one?
Yeah, Pritch, I'm the same way here. This is the number's indicative of it, right? It's basically it's a coin flip, and you're going to rely on quarterbacks. You talked about Darnold and what we've seen throughout his career, and now he's found a great home and a great landing spot, and a team that will, and I think for O'Connell has really tailored the offense around his strengths. So not trying to put him in positions where he has to go play hero ball. And that's really without much of a running game. I think that's probably the biggest difference between these two teams that I see from a personnel standpoint is you mentioned Josh Jacobs, and I love the kid. If you know his stories, this is somebody that you got to root for from where he's been to where he's at now. And he runs so hungry and always rooting for that guy. And I think that the way that he runs and the physical, not only the physicality that he brings, the toughness that he brings, but I think he really inspires his teammates. And I think that's what we've seen offensively. And that takes a ton of pressure off Jordan Love because we've seen early in the season, we know he got hurt the very first week of the year, came back, was not anywhere close to being 100% and really just making some really bonehead decisions with the football, throwing the ball, forcing the ball. Think about that game against Los Angeles, against the Rams and some of the really poor plays he made down in the red zone. They cleaned some of that up, but a lot of that I think is due to the fact that they can just keep pounding the ball in the red zone with Josh Jacobs. And I think he said it, Brady. I think there was a point in the season midway through, it was like, here's how we score, because the Green Bay Packers were struggling to score the red zone. I think he went to the coach and said, just give me the damn ball. Well, they've been giving him the damn ball in the red zone, and he's been finding his way into the house. But this is going to be a tough house to go into. Pritch, you mentioned the environment out there, and there's some little things that I do for a handicap just to look at, well, if I wanted to go to the game, what would the cost be for a resale? What can I go and find StubHub, one of those places where I can go? If I wanted to go to the Giants this weekend and go see the Colts beat up on the New York Giants, I can get in for $8. If I want to go to this game in Minneapolis to see this game at US Bank Stadium, to me, it's always going to be the Metrodome. And from that environment, that perspective, and the noise that comes in there, the cheapest ticket to get in, just to get in standing room only is $300. This is a high level game. It's going to be a great game to watch. Brady, I have no idea who's going to win this game, but it's going to be a barn burner that I'm just going to stay away from. No money coming out of my pocket or contest play for me.
Well, I'm going to root for the Packers because like you, James, I'm a big fan of Josh Jacobs, and I've come to really like Jordan Love as well. I like Matt LaFleur. I like everything about Green Bay, and I hope they have success here in this game. I am not going to be involved in this game from a betting standpoint. Another one I will probably not be involved in is the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins. This is pretty ugly. And I know things have gotten ugly for Cleveland. Dorian Thompson-Robinson now at quarterback. He's listed as questionable. So is Winston. Miami gets a nice win over San Francisco last week. Very little hope of making the postseason here for Miami. But it seems, Mike, I wonder what your thoughts are. It seems like a big number to lay with the Dolphins, regardless of who their opponent is.
Yeah, I think so. You think about that stadium and how difficult it is to throw the football. And the stadium's right on the water. You get swirling winds. It's not normally a directional wind. It swirls, right? And Tua is not a strong arm quarterback. He's a timing quarterback. So that's going to be difficult. But can they lean on the running game? I tell you what, Garrett, Myles Garrett, and everybody else have stepped up defensively for Cleveland. I mean, I think Cleveland in that locker room feels like if we can solidify the quarterback situation, we could be back in the playoffs. So there's some momentum there. I mean, even Myles Garrett talked about, look, I don't want to go through a rebuild. So I'm going to put pressure on that front office right now. Either you're going to do something significant or you're going to lose me. I'm going to force my way out of here. So there's a lot going on in Cleveland to where they could be motivated for this game. But the quarterback situation is not something that gives me any type of hope if I'm trying to back Cleveland right there in that game.
He's been ruled out. And Njoku he's been the security blanket for all of these guys who, regardless of which quarterback is in there, he has already been ruled out. So with him out there, I don't know where Cleveland's going to find any points in this game. I'm thinking, well, maybe Cleveland, there's a spot. It's December, man. It's almost the 1st of January. It's got to be freezing cold out there. You mentioned the wind and where they're coming off of out there off the lake. It's going to be in the mid 50s this game. Now it's going to be windy and it's going to be rainy, but I think the Dolphins are used to wind and rain, just not cold. Well, this is going to be more conducive. This weather almost seems more conducive for Miami in this sense because it's not going to be cold. It's a game in the mid 50s of all time at this time of year, which is crazy. That's what it feels like in Miami. So I don't know how Cleveland scores. I think Miami had an inspired effort last week against San Francisco. Did they replicate that? I don't know. This game's a pass for me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there as well. When we come back, we'll release all of our picks for the contest, and we'll also touch on the Monday Nighter, the Lions visiting the 49ers.
When the football contest crew isn't busy dominating the field and making plays that leave opponents in the dust, they're doing something just as exciting. They're playing myVEGAS Slots. It's a top-ranked, free-to-play mobile app that lets you earn valuable real-world rewards from amazing partners like MGM Grand, Bellagio, and Norwegian Cruise Line. You can score hotel stays, great meals, show tickets, and more just for playing. Download myVEGAS Slots today from your favorite app store. And if you're anything like Brady, James, and Mike, we know you're going to love it. That's a winning play you won't want to miss.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. The final segment here, we release our selections for the two big contests in town. I will start with the Westgate Las Vegas SuperContest, and we are going with a Saturday tilt, an early one. The New England Patriots catching 4.5 points, hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. And then we move into Sunday. We'll take the New Orleans Saints, an ugly home dog there with the Raiders in the role of road favorite, handing 1.5 to the Saints in that one. We're going to take a big favorite in the Buffalo Bills, bigger than what the live market is currently dealing. The Bills, 11-point favorites in the Super Contest. And then the Carolina Panthers catching 8, visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa in the Super Contest. And then finally, going against the grain here a little bit with the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, the Dallas Cowboys in the live market are catching 7.5. They're getting 9.5 in the Super Contest, but we're going to go the other direction here and bet on Kenny Pickett and company taking care of business there at home over the Dallas Cowboys. The same 5 teams we are playing in the Circa Sports Million. The only difference, the Patriots are catching 4 rather than 4.5, and the Saints getting 1 rather than 1.5. For our Dom DeMarco's Pizza Money prop play of the week, we've been really good with this. Go visit Dom DeMarco's in the Summerlin area the next time you're in Las Vegas. We did land on a loser, unfortunately, last week, but this week we're going to try and get the mojo going again with Adam Thielen, been the favorite target of Bryce Young in that Carolina Panthers offense. They visit Tampa Bay. We expect a high-scoring game. We'll take Adam Thielen over his receiving yards of 55.5, and the price there at DraftKings, I believe, is where we found this one, at -115. James, one more game on the card here that we have yet to cover, and a very interesting matchup. The Lions pretty much have that number 1 seed all wrapped up. They do have a lot of injured players, but also some big-time playoff revenge on the line when they visit San Francisco.
Well, they'll have the number 1 seed wrapped up as long as they keep winning. They have to win. It's ultimately, most likely, it's going to come down to them playing Minnesota next week. And that's how they're going to finish out and close out the season. Thinking about where the Detroit Lions are, just we can circle back to the playoffs last year, and the NFC Championship came, and the Lions, sometimes you're going to be aggressive. We know Dan Campbell. I mean, I'm sure casinos love to see Dan Campbell come to their craps table because he's firing, man. He's firing on those hard outs, and that's what he does. He's not looking to kick field goals. He's looking to go in and win. And he said, regardless of what the outcome is for Minnesota or whatever the standings are for the Lions, that ultimately they're going to play all their guys, the guys that are left healthy, I guess, anyway, Pritch. We know on the defensive side, that's where all the injuries, such a long list of guys that are either gone for the year or definitely gone for this game for the Detroit Lions. But offensively, outside of David Montgomery, the offensive line's back intact. And I think this is an opportunity for the Lions to maybe exercise a little revenge, in a sense that not only did they lose the NFC Championship, but how they lost that game when they had full control of it. Now they have an opportunity to get back in there and put themselves not only to get past San Francisco, we know San Francisco's done for the year, but ultimately to get themselves in a position to have that 1 seed, be able to have that bye, maybe next week a bye, 2 weeks a bye in that sense for the Lions. But ultimately, I think Detroit brings it. I like the Lions. I'd lay the 3.5 or the 4 in the contest. I just think for San Francisco, it's his lost season and so many injuries and high expectations. You see that with the Super Bowl loser. That definitely came true to form this year for the 49ers, Mike.
Yeah, instead of biting the Niners' kneecaps, they're going to kick them while they're down, right? I mean, the Lions, they have so much to play for. From a motivational standpoint, you got to get that number 1 seed. I mean, we saw that environment up there, Detroit, what that could be if they're hosting the NFC championship game. I mean, you kind of felt that on the other side. And here you have the 49ers succumbing to the fact of the Super Bowl loser and not making the playoffs the following year. and also going into an offseason with a lot of question marks. I thought that there could be a rallying call for the 49ers a little bit, but I probably was wrong about that, and certainly going to avoid that situation because, I mean, the Lions, with all the momentum, everything to play for, and the Niners, they haven't had a rallying call all year long. Why would it happen now? I mean, could they get embarrassed at home? And if they do, what will that look like moving forward for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch too? So there's a lot riding on this game in a negative way, in my opinion, for the 49ers.
I agree with both you gentlemen. You know, teams like the Carolina Panthers, some of these, you know, teams that did not have expectations, they're playing inspired. Even kind of the Las Vegas Raiders, you know, they're trying hard. The Niners had such high expectations coming in, and it's all been a complete disappointment. I don't see them having a rallying cry left in their system this season. That is going to do it for this episode of the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, presented by Circus Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Have a great Week 17, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Don't you just love football? God, what a fun sport.
Subscribe today on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts to receive weekly alerts as soon as the show's available. Good luck with your contest selections.
Pay that man his money.
And we'll talk to you next week.